If you can believe it, and I had trouble doing so, but it's real, members of the House Oversight Committee are divided on whether or not President Donald Trump should pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. You know, the woman who is a convicted sex trafficker, Epstein's co-conspirator, that Ghislaine Maxwell, the woman who was moved to a minimum security facility after Trump's former personal lawyer, now Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, had a meeting with her. Who knows what kind of deal was made during that meeting? We're not privy to it, but immediately afterwards, she was, moved to that minimum security facility where she's now playing with puppies. Now, Trump has famously not ruled out pardoning Maxwell. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is a video from July of last year.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if she's cooperating?
It's something I haven't thought about. It's really something
recommended.
It's something I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't.
I can't talk about that now because it's a very sensitive interview going on.
Can you trust what she's telling him? She's a convicted trafficker who's eager to get out of prison.
Well, he's a professional lawyer. I think he's been through things like this before. But you should focus on Clinton.
So, Waz, let's say you find yourself in a position where you are the president of the United States. You find yourself in that position, okay? And reporters keep asking you repeatedly whether you intend to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. What would your answer be?
Hell no.
Hell no.
Or F no. It would be no uncertain terms. Like, she's a convicted, sex trafficker of young people, of minors.
Of minors, yes. And not only that, she did partake in abusing them.
Yes, she participated in their abuse. She didn't just traffic them to people who would abuse them. She was an active, willing participant in said abuse. And the idea that you would pardon them or commute their sentence is despicable. And it begs the question, why would he do that?
What do they have on him?
Why would he do that?
Exactly. Now, here's what's even more disturbing, Waz. It turns out that Republican members of the House Oversight Committee, Democrats are all in agreement that she should not be pardoned. But the Republicans in the House Oversight Committee are split on whether or not Donald Trump should pardon her. Which makes me think, oh my God, how many people are implicated in the Epstein files? Like, what is going, if I were a member of Congress, there'd be no freaking question. No, of course not. I would not want the stench of providing cover and leniency to an abuser of minors like Ghislaine Maxwell by saying, I don't know, maybe it would be a good idea to pardon her. What do they have on you? That's what I want to know. So, earlier this week, we did cover how Maxwell's attorney, his name is David Oscar Marcus, felt that the chances of Maxwell getting a pardon, pretty good. Given what we're now learning about the Republicans in the House Oversight Committee, apparently Marcus appears to be correct in his assertion. So in an interview with Politico that was published this week, Oversight Committee Chair James Comer says the members are divided on the issue of pardoning Maxwell. Here's what he said. When asked whether he believed it was a favorable deal to issue a pardon in return for Maxwell's testimony, Comer said a lot of people do. Number one, why would anyone trust Ghislaine Maxwell, who's a huge liar? But also on top of that was, we know that our DOJ has no interest in prosecuting anyone who's implicated in the Epstein files. They've told us that over and over again. So her testimony wouldn't even come up because no one would be prosecuted. What are we talking about?
If so how plea agreements and cooperation usually goes, it's all right, we have you dead to rights for one crime. We'll show you leniency because you help us put away somebody who we consider to be a quote unquote bigger fish. Are y'all trying to tell me she's about to deliver some bigger fish? Of course not. That would mean actually powerful, influential people were about to be under prosecution by the American federal government. And we know that's not gonna happen. So what is she doing? What is she doing that she's earned some level of pardon or commuted sentence? Where is it? Like, aside from, oh, she's gonna be quiet about our guys. That's it.
Yes. So Comer admitted the committee was split on the issue, but would not directly name who expressed support. Which one of the Republicans in the House Oversight Committee expressed support for a pardon, saying, get a load of this, I don't speak for my committee. You don't? Okay. I mean, I get what he's trying to say, but I would have worded it a little differently, because you do speak for your committee. In fact, you were speaking for your committee, but you don't want to speak on behalf of the perverts who, want to consider pardoning her because they're worried potentially about their own wrongdoings coming out. That's what I think is going on here. That's my speculation. I want to be clear about that. So Comer claims that he's against the pardon, saying that it looks bad. You think? He told Politico the following: honestly, other than Epstein, the worst person in this whole investigation is Maxwell. Good job, Sherlock. Good job. He's really nailing it. And it could be because Trump, a longtime Epstein associate, will probably carry out this pardon, and maybe Comer's worried that it's going to be a bad look for him personally as a supporter of Trump and his agenda to, be associated with Trump as Trump carries out a pardon. And as we all know, Republican lawmakers are pretty terrified of speaking out against Trump. They're worried that Trump is going to direct his ire at them, much like he did with Marjorie Taylor Greene. But I actually want to ask you a little more about this, because I think that times are changing, and I think a lot of Trump's base has left, right? Like, you could look at these ridiculous polls, like, 100% of MAGA supports the war in Iran. Yeah, but those are people who still identify as MAGA, but a lot of people who voted for Trump, Republican voters who voted for him 3 times, have defected because he ended up being everything that they wanted to avoid.
I wonder, I think there's something to the idea that Trump's political power within the Republican coalition is weakened. I think there's something to that. But the Republican Party as an apparatus just kind of doesn't exist outside of him. So you can say Trump is weaker, but there's no counterbalancing weight to sort of beat him on its own. So even a weakened Trump is still mightier than anything the Republicans can mount against it. And so it's still like kind of bad math as a Republican to go against the guy and still remain Republican. Like, there's just like, especially you as an individual Congress critter, it's hard to envision that some little, dude in Kentucky is gonna be able to say, you know what? I can withstand the wrath of Donald Trump and the money that he can command to go against me and the power structures that he can nudge in a direction that's against me. I mean, Thomas Massie seems to be the only one because his district just loves him. But most of these guys don't have that rock solid actual voter support. Most of these guys are in their seats because there's an R next to their name.
Yes.
And nothing else.
You're so right about that. You're so right about that. Because with Thomas Massie, he has made a name for himself as being principled, as being an honest. I mean, look, I don't agree with a lot of his political views. I agree with him when it comes to Israel, that's for sure. But the reason why his base loves him so much and they're so loyal to him is because he's not all talk. And he's willing to walk through fire, as he did with the fight over the Epstein files, in order to carry out what he said he was going to carry out for his voters. And I respect that. I really do. Because that's what Congress is supposed to be, right? Congress is supposed to represent the will of the people. And we don't really see much of that. So you're absolutely right about the other Republicans. They are far more vulnerable than someone like Thomas Massie, who's beloved by his
even Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was an insanely good fundraiser, insanely great name recognition.
Small dollar, by the way.
Yes, small dollar fundraising. That means individuals are like, I love her and I'm gonna send her money. She, her campaign for Senate got deep. Trump and him was like, nah, we're not backing that. And she had to just straight up just quit. And she's somebody with name recognition, money, like she can influence people to fundraise, but like she's at the top of the stack of Congress people, and she had to bow down.
She didn't have to. I don't think she had to. I think she could have stayed in her seat. She could have continued.
She could have stayed in her seat for sure.
Yeah, but she had, she wanted. She claims she stepped down specifically because she feared for her family. And I can believe that. But if she chose to fight, which I kind of wish that she did, I think she could have easily remained in that seat. And who knows, maybe that would have been a little bit, it might have been inspiration for some of these mealy-mouthed, pathetic Republicans who are now musing the possibility of supporting Trump after he pardons Ghislaine Maxwell. Imagine how embarrassed, like you are a disgrace. Like I can't imagine you being a family member of mine. Imagine having a parent that's on the record supporting Trump pardoning a serial sex trafficker and abuser of minors.
Oh my God, JD Vance, good luck. Oh
no,
my
goodness. not good luck. Goodbye.
He's done. And like, how do you run behind this stuff, right? Like, you see how they tied like Kamala, they tied Biden's record around Kamala's neck during the campaign.
Yep.
Which I get it, was completely fair. My goodness, the crow this guy has to eat on the way to this presidency that's never going to happen for him. Wow.
By the way,
bro, your boss pardoned a child predator.
Well, it hasn't happened yet.
Up.
It hasn't happened yet, but there's some likelihood that it will happen. I mean, Trump hasn't poured any cold water on the notion. So, but with JD Vance, we might dodge a huge bullet because this is the guy, remember, he's on the record saying, I am a post-liberal Republican, meaning he does not believe in liberal democracy. Not good, not good. All right, so blame for the administration's handling of the Epstein documents was laid at the feet of the former Attorney General, Pam Bondi. And look, she did bungle it. She's a total clown. There's no question about that. But some speculate that the real person running interference on the Epstein files wasn't Bondi, but it was actually Trump himself, to which I say, yeah. It was obviously Donald Trump. It was clearly Donald Trump. I actually think Bondi was okay with releasing the files. And then she realized, oh, this guy that I admire so much is implicated. So as soon as Trump got inaugurated, we read the stories about how the FBI was working around the clock to redact Trump's name specifically from the files, which is insane. And so we're just gonna have to wait and see what happens. But meanwhile, I just wanna remind you all that Democrats serving on this committee were unified in being against the pardoning of Ghislaine Maxwell. She should serve out the rest of her sentence, okay? 20-year sentence, she's not even really in prison. She's playing with puppies in a place that she doesn't belong in anyway. And the injustice of that alone is pretty disgusting.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.